So I listened to Orion Taraban a lot on YouTube's. I came across him probably a year or so ago. Same with Sadia Khan, another psychologist, just like Orion Taraban, who delve into relationship aspects, sex relationship aspects. And then I saw his book. I was kind of curious. And then based on the multiple YouTube information I saw about him, I was curious, what is he talking about? Although I kind of knew what it was going to talk about. One thing I would say, the value of others and the description, understanding the economic model of relationship to get and keep more of what you want in the sexual relation marketplace, it's kind of titillating, but really what he kind of breaks down very step by step, including the stats, history, and the whole, I guess, the change in way things are now from previous to why, it's pretty detailed with actual studies in place. So it's a great read in that manner. But if you're thinking, oh, if I read this, I'll have more relationships or more sex or something like that, I don't think that's what this is meant for. It's getting into the reality of the situation. Many times, one of the issues most men and women have, we don't like, including me, we don't see actually things as they are. We usually see things as we want them. And society in general, it's the same thing. And that's what Orion Taraban kind of breaks down. So bottom line, to give brief summary of the book, is for women 18 to 25 is the best time to get into a relationship. Kids, all that stuff works well within that range. For men, it's better to wait till 40. Now take that as will. So 18 to 25 should marry a 40-year-old? I don't know. But the factor is men look for childbearing women. But we think, attractive childbearing women. That's that's what men look for. Whether you know that inherently, I guess, in your awareness or not, but subconsciously that's what we're doing. Genetically, that's what we're doing. Women are looking at essentially someone who can provide for them, dependable and protective, all that stuff. So that's the bottom line. That's what he's talking about, where men and women differ. And then he goes into the whole current situation versus past. So that's kind of bottom line summary. The details are where the world is now and where it used to be, why traditional marriage is formed, and now why they don't apply anymore. And we are refusing to accept that, most people, because of the stats say that mostly marriages fail. High rate, 50% or so. That's US stats. Now, here's the kind of the weird stat or completely shocking stat I heard. I'm, originally from India, and India divorce was not known much, maybe 10%. Now the stats are with the young generation, 50 to 60%, potentially higher than US. Why is that? That's exactly what the book shows. Because the economic models have changed. Before it used to be that women had to depend on a man to provide, and then men obviously were looking for long-term, not looking for, but men were essentially choices were, hey, within the community, within personal interactions, you found the person, got married. Back in India, it's arranged marriages, which actually Orion goes into saying that might be a better model than the current love marriage, which is simply not long-term sustaining for most people. And that's very true, right? That's very true. Again, this is the whole going with the version we see. That's one of the things he goes into. One of the things he goes into, the social media online spoils that for women, in the sense women have this whole view that they have a lot of options, right? And then the reality is, whether Orion states this or not, you can see in the studies. Once women gets into 30s and plus, the options become lower. And for men, the younger men have lower options, the older men, evidently 40 plus. Now, that obviously depends on the person being highly successful person and how much visibility he has in the social and corporate world, whatever that case is, right? I think that's where the difference is. For women, it's like they can get on online, social media, and then see all these dudes hitting up, thinking that they're in high demand. The problem is that doesn't mean anything when it comes to the quality of the man, right? Because most obviously people who are self-confident men, they won't hit on women that way, most likely, right? The world has changed, so everybody's on dating apps and all that stuff. So obviously that's different. The choices are most people go with the social media or dating world or dating apps. So that's there for, so there's a potential optionality. But anyway, the bottom line, what it goes into is women, what women look for, the characteristics of the guy is a provider, commitment, and appreciate them, all that other characters. The main thing is protector, commitment. Versus man, commitment is costly, right? Sex is costly because just inherently, genetically, sex for women meant, hey, child, which is expensive for them. Having a child means a lot of responsibility. And then if they have with any guy, if he's not able to provide, then that's on them. So that's where the whole factor of model comes into. Now versus men is more, men can bear, have kids till they die almost. The sperm is producible. So inherently, they're always looking at young childbearing. That's why, if anybody knows Bill Belichick, 70 plus year old dating a 24-year-old, which is like, holy cow, that's new. But jokes aside, that's the factor. Women look at provider, protector, long commitment. Men look at essentially sex or procreating, essentially, although that might not be the way men think, it's more just sex. So I listen to Orion Taraban a lot on YouTube's. I came across him probably a year or so ago. Same with Sadia Khan, another psychologist, just like Orion Taraban, who delve into relationship aspects, sex relationship aspects. And now, fast forward to this generation where women can make their own money and also have access to, obviously the contraceptions and all that stuff. That's why things have changed. All of a sudden, women can make their own money. So they don't need essentially a man many times till they realize, oh, I'm past my age, I need to get kids. So that's what it goes into. Once you cross 30, or actually 38, I think, it's pretty much where your chances of having kids is now almost very dwindle a lot. Known people who had kids in 40s too. Somebody had it in 50s too, but yeah, that's rare cases, right? And then consequentially, men who are very successful, they have too much options. So they go look for younger women. Why would they want to date a 30 plus year old woman? That's the reality. But we are stuck in that whole thing about the romantic version and shaming people. That's what it is, in shaming people about wanting to jump around, whatever. And that's what he proposes at the end, that maybe things need to change. So societally, eventually we will adapt and think, hey, even a marriage has a limited, or a partnership, whatever it is, the limited scope till the kids grow up or whatever, then provide, and then they move on. If it doesn't work out, so on and so forth. I don't know if I agree completely with that. Well, because I guess I'm old school a little bit there, but I do see that. I do see the fact that getting stuck in the old thinking and trying to fit things to our thinking and stuff actually how they are is why the relationship culture now is so bad. Because men heavily, especially 20 to 30-year-old, I think are, having, basically it's the stats is they're having sex way less. Women also are kind of having way less, but not as much as men, because obviously for women, sex obviously that's not difficult. It's more men because they have to approach people in this online world. Many people, 20 something year olds barely know how to communicate, forget even create a relationship. So that's where it is with the social media and everything. And this is the hard reality that people have to face. on understanding how things are, the model of economic model of relationships and all, beyond just, sex and all, understanding everything else, value system, how the value system of relationships works is critical. If you ignore that and live in this idealistic world, right, then guess what? You're going to get what what the reality says, no matter how you think, how you want it to be. That's kind of the difficulty most of us have. I'm talking about even me. So I'm not saying, oh, you guys. So it's a great book to read. Unlike any other book I read, it really is not about, I don't know, coaching people how to date or relationship. It's more coaching people how to understand the dynamics of relationship now and understand it and go for it and, create the relationship you want based on understanding that model and not resisting it. So it taught me a lot of lessons actually, that thinking that there's going to be a lifetime thing, that might not be the model anymore. Probably still live in that world. Like if I have a relationship, it has to be a lifetime, right? Maybe that's not. So that's something even the younger ones have to think about, 20 something year olds. Maybe that's how the model should operate. When having kids and all, they have an agreement of X number of years. Maybe that's how it'll work. I don't know. Anyway, but I would highly, highly recommend reading his book and listening to his podcast or YouTube channel on Psych Hacks, Orion Taraban's great content. I'm not saying, I won't say I'll agree everything he says, but a lot of that is pretty practical. That's how we, information, nothing to do with idealistic values. It's more practical, what the reality says. So please do read it. And if you have read it, let me know.